and welcome to Desperate for a Name. I'm Mickey.
And I'm Natty.
And today we are starting our, I guess, what we're going to call our Tarzanathon. We didn't really come up with a name for this.
Yeah, it's not
Very last minute.
It's not bad.
Actually, I like that. Like, we're going with
Tarzanathon.
I'm going with Tarzanathon.
It sounds like an alien planet.
It does sound like an alien planet, which makes sense actually, because Edgar Rice Burroughs, the author of Tarzan, also wrote John Carter.
Yeah.
So we basically had to make up a whole language for that too. So yeah, no, we're doing Tarzan. So for the next about probably 4 weeks or 4 episodes or whatever, or however you're watching this, or
we're never telling you what time it is here.
We live in a state of infinite. We're from the future. Yeah, that's it.
We live in the temporal zone where time doesn't pass.
Where time never moves. Actually moves backwards and forwards and occasionally sideways, but you get
we're
used to it.
Timeless beings, like dolphins.
Like dolphins. Or Keanu Reeves.
Or Patrick Stewart.
Yeah, my God.
Or Paul Rudd.
Really? Paul Rudd?
He's ageless.
Is he?
Yes.
Anyway.
You know how old he is?
How?
Guess.
What, 42?
52.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Good for him. Keeping it
So they all clearly know where the Fountain of Youth is and are like hoarding it for themselves.
Anyway.
Which is an awesome movie I would see.
So we are doing our Tarzanathon. The main reason, why we're doing this is because, I feel like, honestly, this is just a personal thing from recent years. I feel like a lot of people don't know much about Tarzan. I never actually looked into it. There's actually a lot to Tarzan, from a lore and
Mickey's a bit of a Tarzan geek.
Oh, shut up. From a media standpoint, there's a bunch more, and I think people always just stop at maybe a couple of the stereotypes that everyone knows about him. And then the Disney movie, and that's it.
And George of the Jungle.
And well, that's a parody of Tarzan.
Which is why everyone probably knows more about George of the Jungle than Tarzan.
Well, there was one cartoon and then a movie. That's it.
And yet they know more about that than they do the actual franchise of Tarzan.
Well, parodies can become pretty popular. It's kind of like how people know more about things like Scary Movie than Scream.
I was gonna say more like Spaceballs and Star Wars, but
that is not true.
Okay.
That is not true. Most people don't even know Spaceballs exist.
What about Young
which is a crime.
What about Young Frankenstein?
People also don't know about that. People are not that versed with Mel Brooks, unfortunately. Don't as much as I would love to agree with you on that, that is not true. Anyway.
All right.
So today we are basically, for the next 4 weeks or so, we are going to be talking about different aspects of the Tarzan franchise. And we're not talking about Disney. We left Disney out of this. So it's we're not talking about the Disney movie. We're not talking about the Disney sequel movie, like Tarzan 2, which was, again, a terrible name for a prequel. And we're not talking about...
It did confuse me.
Yeah, we're not talking about the Disney animated TV show either, like Tarzan and Jane, I think it was called. We're not talking about that. You didn't even know that existed, did you?
No, I did. I saw it.
You do. Okay. So we're not talking about any of those.
Not even Phil Collins?
Phil Collins doesn't need to be spoken about because Phil Collins is great. Period.
Will you show me?
Anyway, let's we're starting today with we're starting with a basic intro. We're basically talking about the books / some of the comic book adaptations because we're still comic book nerds and we might as well talk about that. And also because I think the comic books are pretty good. Some of them are pretty good. There's so many come on, it's like one of those popular book series. You could imagine that almost everyone kind of got their hands on it at one point. So both Marvel and DC had runs of Tarzan.
Yeah, where do you think Shang-Chi came from initially?
I get that. Anyway, where did he come from initially?
No, he was Marvel got the rights to the super racist Fu Manchu.
All right, we're not going there. Let's not go there.
So they just gave him a son.
I get it. Anyway, so Nati, what are you familiar with in the
Hold on, I think it's relevant just because
sure.
In terms of old book series.
Okay, go for it.
Which historically, yeah, it was super racist.
Okay.
So, but Marvel got the rights to that series, and then they were let's give him a son, and then make him a good guy, but also team him up with a hot white British guy. Because Shang-Chi worked with MI6.
Oh yeah, he did.
Which thank God they didn't do that in the movie.
Anyway, let's go back to Tarzan.
Yes.
Back to the white ape man. That doesn't sound better after that. After that whole thing, this
whole thing is gonna be just tiptoeing on nails.
Oh please, no, you're gonna be tiptoeing. I honestly don't. I will just go full throttle. Nadia, what are you familiar with when it comes to the Tarzan lore or like the franchise in itself? There's a book.
I know there are books.
For most
there are several books.
For most people out there, I'm assuming actually never knew that Tarzan was based off a book. He started out as a book. I think came out in 1912. I want to say.
Yeah, somewhere around that.
Somewhere around that. It's a very like it just hit like the 100-year mark. Like
10 years ago.
Like a couple years back. They did a whole thing. I think they released like a centennial.
A Tarzantennial.
Yes, they actually. I think
Tarzantennial.
they might have called it that.
Tarzantennial. It totally works.
But they released something, I think, for like a special edition for it. For that. But I think, like, are you familiar much with the lore in itself? Do you know much, at least the original story? Do you know anything about that?
No, I don't. Would you show me?
All right.
I want to know more. Are
you done?
No, I
just.
But you can show.
Do you know anything or not?
I know the basics.
What basics?
I know.
Tell me the basics without bursting in a song, and we're good.
I can't. It's just so magical. His voice is Phil Collins.
Phil Collins does not show up in anything else we're going to be talking about, so you have to get it out of your system. Get out of your system now. Yeah, get out of your system now.
It's just in my head now.
Fine. Anyway.
Rosie O'Donnell, who was in that movie.
She is in
Fine.
that
movie. All right. Tarzan was born to John and Alice Clayton. So his name.
All you know the story is like born to ape.
I'm getting to it.
All right, fine. Get to it.
His parents' names are John and Alice Clayton, which means that his last name is Clayton, who was the villain in the animated Tarzan, in the Disney Tarzan movie. I also know that he befriends a Frenchman.
All right, how about this? Why don't we just go into it?
Just go for it.
Let's just go into it. This is gonna be because it's gonna take us forever. Otherwise, I wanted to see. There's not much. You didn't have much in there, did you?
Well, there were other stuff, but
there are other things and stuff that happened, and Africa, and apes.
Fine, but this was written by a white guy in 1912 about Africa. So if I hear something racist, I'm calling it out.
Okay, how racist do you think is good? Well, okay.
Look, explain the story and let's go.
All right. I will mention. Yeah. So basically, the basic premise of the story was it's not a very long. It was a pretty short book, I think, at the time. So basically, there was a couple called John and Alice Clayton, and Clayton John is the heir of he's like the Earl of Greystoke. He has the inheritance of some manor back in England. It's about like
some bullshit Downton Abbey thing.
Yeah, who cares? Anyway, so they get shipwrecked on the coast of Africa and end up living in the jungle for a bit.
Do they specify where?
I don't remember. Not specifically. I think eventually they do. But I can't really remember.
Because Africa kind of has a lot of coasts.
I think it's like on the west coast, somewhere on the west coast.
Okay.
I think I could be wrong. They end up getting shipwrecked on Africa. Yeah, but this was back. The whole point is supposed to be like in the 1800s, where like, in certain parts of Africa they didn't really know much yet, or
they
like
hadn't colonized it yet. You mean?
Yeah, sure. But essentially. Where was I?
Literally started.
I literally just started. Oh my god, why is this so hard? So they get shipwrecked. They get shipwrecked, and they get trapped there for a while. And about a year into it or so, after they built a cabin, they got comfortable there. They realized that they're not being saved anytime soon. Alice gives birth to Tarzan, or to John Clayton III, at the time, and then she kind of goes kind of nuts. So she ended up getting sick, or like I think she got like malaria or something, or whatever. She was in the jungle for a year, and so she kind of.
White people have no immunities.
But really, you're gonna go there. But she ends up kind of getting insane, or she goes nuts basically, and she. After Tarzan is born, she actually stops leaving their cabin. She thinks they're back in London. She goes straight up nuts, and eventually ends up, I think, dies to her illness, or and succumbs to it.
Better than getting mauled by a leopard.
What ends up happening, and then meanwhile, while John is there, he's also started to go mad, and he kept a journal about their time and their exploits there. Although one day, their hunting, not hunting cabin, but their cabin. Gets raided by a couple of apes, who led by the vicious ape leader known as Kerchak, and he comes in and ends up
like a coordinated raid.
No, they just come upon it one day and they go into it, and then they end up yeah. But he's one of his rampages. He ends up killing John, and they also end up, I think, in some of the versions finding like a gun, like with the gun he had on him or something like that. And they mess around. They don't do anything with it.
Hey, they have thumbs.
Oh, he almost one of the apes almost shoots themselves. It's kind of funny actually. It's like, because
I don't know why.
I never know why in
media. It's a very horrific image for me.
No, but why in most time when apes and stuff, when they pick up like guns and things, their first instinct is like,
look through the hole.
No, put the barrel in your mouth.
You don't know what's gonna come out. Maybe there's like food in there.
I know. I just find it funny. I don't know why. It's like, I'm like, I don't know what this thing is. I guess I better like,
taste it.
I don't know. There's a barrel. I better stick it in my mouth for some reason. But I could see that, but it's just
anyway.
Funny.
The image of an ape with a gun is fucking awesome to me. I also like the idea of them like coordinating raids on like people.
They didn't coordinate it. They just happened upon it. You just on a rampage. At the same time, during one of his rampage, Kerchak ends up killing the ape Kala's child, and she kind of just like ends up like, I have it.
Oh, not the leopard.
Yeah, no, it's not that. It's literally Kerchak's fault. And so she ends up kind of dumping her kid because he's dead now. And she finds baby John Clayton. So she takes him, adopts him, and names him Tarzan, which in the ape language there means white skin. So one thing that I probably should also mention in this story, or at least in the original story. So like, okay, probably most people familiar with the Disney movie, they think like Tarzan is raised by gorillas, right?
Uh-huh.
The thing in the books and stuff, they are actually not. They're not actual any specific type of ape. They're just called, I think they're called like mogwai or
not that one,
or mawai or something like that. They're called like great apes in the book, and they speak their own actual like ape language. Like they like Edgar Rice Burroughs made up like his own language or like own words for it.
He tokened it?
No, I don't know if he tokened it, but like he has like he calls, so like Tarzan actually does mean something in their language, and that's his name.
Do they write?
They do not write. It's just what they speak. But it's a language that's apparently spoken by many of the animals or many of the apes in the jungle or whatever. It's a very common.
So what is it, like Jungle Book, where they all speak the same language and there are certain words everyone understands?
Similar. It's similar, but no. But it's similar, yes and no. But it just seems like but that's just the thing that happens. Anyway, so they end up so that ends up happening. So Kala takes in Tarzan and starts to raise him. And then at this point, it's pretty typical.
How big are they?
So they're about man apes, so they're like about the size of your average ape, it seems. So like,
what does that mean, average ape?
So I mean, I don't know. I'm trying to remember like what the average size is. It's like, I'd say like half our height, maybe.
What, like Grodd?
Well, no, Grodd's a gorilla. Gorillas are big.
All right.
If he's an ape,
so like a chimpanzee.
Like, yeah, think Planet of the Apes.
I was thinking, how does a chimpanzee beat a man to death?
You
know what? I'm not gonna find out.
They actually can. They're very strong.
I don't want to find out.
And Kerchak is a lot bigger and stronger than most of the apes. They're pretty big. And also like, yeah, he was able to beat him to death. It's not a pretty thing. They did that. Anyway, moving on.
That's not a very proper way to go.
It's not a proper way to go. So the story here basically kind of like stays about the same to what most people know. Tarzan gets raised by the apes. He goes through there's a couple like a side adventure stuff. Like at one point he has like a best friend at one point who's kind of like his uncle, who ends up getting murdered by Sabor. That's when Tarzan first learns how to swim.
You're gonna have to explain who Sabor is.
Oh yeah, for most people who don't know, Sabor is a leopard, or I think so there's actually in the book there's a couple. There's an enemy that he has the leopard. He also has one that's a panther. He meets a panther, yeah, who kills. I think the panther is the panther, and that is called Sabor, not the leopard. And so Sabor kills like one of his best friends or his uncles. That's also when Tarzan learns how to swim for the first time. And the rest of the story at that point, like that part of the story is essentially the same, where it's like he learns to be part of the apes. He goes through this whole identity crisis where it's like, I look different from all of them, all that crap. He goes through some things that never really got brought up, like there's a whole thing with like his best friends and his relationships.
Is one of them an elephant?
He does meet Tantor at a certain point, but that's not until he's later an adult.
Okay.
Almost all of his friends at the time are apes.
Yeah, you realize the Disney movie is my only reference point, so I'm just gonna like.
Yeah, no, I know. I know for a lot of people it is. That's why.
I'm the POV character for the audience.
Yeah. Yes, you are. He ends up. So he befriends a lot of them. So at one point when he's younger, he's about like 13, I think, or 16. He's young. He ends up stumbling upon his parents' old cabin.
Wait, you were talking about his relationships?
Oh yeah. I should mention this. So
Are you gonna say anything that's gonna get us arrested?
no, not arrested, but Tarzan does actually end up having like sort of like a crush on another ape, a female ape, because that's all he knows. As far as he's concerned, he's like basically like the disfigured one of the group. That's all.
Cue up the Rule 34 pages.
It's like being it's like going to like I don't know. It's like being like
I swear to God,
I'm trying to think of like a good.
This is impossible and it's not gonna happen. But if anyone listening is like an artist, don't send us fan art of that.
Yeah. I mean, they're probably. I mean, look, they even adapted that what? Oh, of him.
Tarzan romancing his chimp crush.
By romancing, you mean
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, no, I don't want to see that.
I'm gonna stop there. I'm just gonna stop there and keep going.
It's the internet. Someone somewhere.
Let's just keep going. I want to keep going. I don't want to talk about this anymore. So later on, eventually Tarzan stumbles into his cabin. Into his parents' cabin.
He just finds it.
He finds it's in the jungle. It's like right there. He just
it's in the jungle.
Well, no, it's in the jungle. It's right near where he lives. It's like if his family found it and they brought him, like, and that's where they found him, you don't think that they go there every once in a while, or like they have?
I thought apes were nomadic. Wouldn't they just leave the area?
Not when they have a nest. No.
I'm not a zoologist.
No, you are not. You don't seem to know much about apes, so shut the hell up. Anyway, so they stick around. And also you gotta remember this was written in 1912, so things were like can change, or things were considered a bit different, or like what the knowledge they had was a bit different at the time, or might have been updated. Anyway, so he ends up learning. He ends up finding his father's hunting knife and takes that for himself, because he needs it, because Tarzan realizes that like he has a harder time compared to the other apes because there's some things that he naturally doesn't have, like very sharp teeth, or anyway, like he finds ways to make advantages for himself over the other apes so that he can kind of keep up with them.
He uses ingenuity.
He ends up so how like,
so he's an anime protagonist.
I guess not really, he's just a survivalist. How
like he works harder than other people and he has to find a way to circumvent his weaknesses.
Sure, yeah, call him an anime protagonist, I don't know. Anyway, he ends up so you even like how like he has like the whole loincloth, the classic. So actually originally a leopard print, because it's actually taken from I think from the leopard that he kills at one point. Because and he also ends up skinning it, because so before that, like, he's basically naked all the time. Like,
which makes sense.
It makes sense. He grew up in the jungle. I never liked that, and like I get why in the Disney movie, but they never actually gave.
Well, let's draw his dick in the Disney movie.
No, but like they never gave a reason to why he has the loin. He just has it.
I don't think anyone questioned it.
Fair. It always kind of bothered me.
I think he just had it as a baby and never took it off.
I'll say that. I could say that. I could see that. But like, so so he ends up starting to wear a loincloth later on, because he realizes, or because his whole thing is like, I don't have fur and stuff to keep me warm throughout most of the time, and it's pretty freaking cold sometimes in the jungle at night or in the day, and we do crap. So he ends up so when he ends up killing the leopard, he takes the pelt and then he makes his loincloth out of it.
It's just like starting from scratch as a person, as humanity started.
He's just like, there's some things that he doesn't have naturally, so he uses it. So like he can't he can't kill or skin things with his teeth or his claw, or like he doesn't have claws or anything, so he uses a knife. He still acts like an ape, and he still does swings on trees and does all kinds of things like that. So when he finds the cabin, though, he ends up so he doesn't learn that he's human. He doesn't know that. He still has no idea,
because he doesn't know what people are.
But he learns first, but he starts to learn what people are.
Okay.
And like he starts to see, like, wait a minute, so I'm different, like, because he sees like a picture of an ape and he sees a picture of like a human, and he starts to learn, and he's like, wait a minute, I look more like this guy and not these guys. And so he ends up actually starting to teach himself how to read. So the funny thing is, in the book series and stuff like that, so Tarzan actually ends up teaching himself how to read English. He has but he has no idea how to speak it.
How do you teach yourself how to read?
So the way he did it, because he ended up starting using, because
this is a genuine question, because people like do teach themselves how to read, and
what do you mean?
Like in general, like people have taught themselves how to read, I just don't know how.
Well, no, it's a sense where it's like, how did you learn how to read? You find you see words and you see letters, and you start realizing that they correspond to like images and stuff. He finds a bunch of books, and he starts realizing that certain things are connected to other stuff. So he teaches himself how to read English. The thing is, he doesn't know how to speak it at all, or how to understand it. He doesn't understand it. He can only read or write it, because he's never heard it. As far as he knows, he doesn't know what the hell it sounds like. So eventually, as time moves on, Kerchak gets pissed off at Tarzan for becoming like better and stronger and gets jealous. So he ends up challenging him.
Kerchak gets in the booze again and goes on another one of his rampages.
Kerchak gets one of his booze rampages. So he ends up challenging Tarzan and they end up fighting to the death. And then Tarzan kills him, thus becoming the leader of their tribe. So he becomes king of the apes. So that's where the name comes from.
Wouldn't it be chieftain of the apes?
Not really. They kind of just go like whatever. They call him a king, I guess, because they're like, you're in charge of us.
Better title.
Of our, it's like Lord of the Apes. They don't really care. Like, you're in charge now. That's the point. Is the point they're going with. Around this same time, Tarzan runs into the first people he's ever seen, which is a local African tribe, which they first show.
Be very careful.
What?
Here. How did this white author portray these people in 1912?
Not 100% great. But at the same time, like, I'm not gonna go in there. I'm not gonna go that route. I'm just gonna say what happened and what they were.
All right.
They were basically just some sort of. They were cannibals, though. They did confirm that. But that's not really a racist thing that did happen a lot in Africa, depending where you went.
Did he clarify that maybe this is like a specific instance?
Well, no, because he talks when it's with them, it's a specific tribe. Because I think Tarzan doesn't end up befriending other tribes, so it's not the first time. I'm not saying that Edgar Rice Burroughs probably wasn't racist sometimes, and I think even back then he was considered slightly, in some depictions, racist. But I'm gonna try to look past those right now because there's a story we're trying to tell here. Anyway, so what happens is he ends up fighting, but it is interesting because, like, of course, Tarzan's gonna have a hard time because, like, they're the first people he sees, but they look nothing like him. They also don't make the greatest first impression because
physiologically you're basically the same except for the
no, but the skin color is different. That's weird. That's like your hair doesn't look like mine. Your skin doesn't look like mine.
Like they don't have fur, just like you. Or
dude, you don't think? Okay, it's not like he's only hung out with apes. He knows there are other things besides apes out there.
Yeah, well, they clearly look more similar to you than anything else here.
But it gave him a little bit of. But so the other reason he also kind of gets, so it creates he gains sort of a rivalry with this village or this tribe because what ends up happening is one day is when he first meets them is because there's a squad of them as going out on their like annual or like a ritualistic hunting trip, which is a common thing. I don't care, like that's not a stereotype. That happens.
Right.
We still do. People still do that now, and we live in society. And I'm putting those with air quotes.
Very big air quotes.
Very big air quotes. But like hunt people. So they go on a hunting, and it's the 1800s. What else are they gonna like?
Yeah, okay.
It's a ritualistic thing. It's like going through. It's like back then that was like your tribal bar mitzvah. You go up, you read your prayers, and then you also go kill an animal to prove that you're a man.
A lot of people do that.
So the chief, so see?
I was not calling you out on that. I'm just saying.
I felt like you were. I don't know. Anyway, so the chieftain's son of the village, so ends up wounding and then eventually killing Kala, so Tarzan, which kind of gets Tarzan pissed and basically kind of means like his first reaction to humans kind of suck. He's like, no way. And he ends up for vengeance, ends up killing the chieftain's son. So from that point on for a while, Tarzan and the village do not have a great relationship. He never ends up really revealing himself to them. They're actually, thanks to them, the legend of Tarzan starts to spread. But also he starts to he messes around with them a lot. He sneaks in. They start seeing him. They see him as like a devilish spirit,
like a ghost in the trees.
No, because he raids their village for food and supply sometimes, or he messes around.
Last thing.
He would sneak in and like rearrange things on their altar to make like there's a freaking. So they created a superstition around him.
All right, so he's
because he hated them.
So he's like a white devil.
They actually call him that, yeah.
Nice.
But or like they just call him like the devil, like because they only know of him slightly. But
I'm gonna call him White Devil for the hell of it.
And we also gotta remember that Tarzan, even like in the stories, isn't that white because he grew up in like the African jungle, so he's like
tan.
He's very bronze. He's like I would say he's like I don't know. It's like someone who lives in Hawaii or something.
You mean like a white person who lives in Hawaii?
Yeah. Or like or kind of like he's got like kind of like Dwayne Johnson's complexion. I would imagine.
But Dwayne Johnson isn't white.
No, he's not. But he's very like light skinned. You ever notice that? Like young Dwayne Johnson.
All right, if we're gonna get into a discussion about colorism, we'll be here for a whole day.
Fine, but
I don't think either of us are very qualified to talk about it.
Well, I'm just talking about for like an observational thing.
I get it.
Like what I literally see. And how some versions portray it. In other versions, he's very tan, very dark.
Even in the Disney movie, he is drawn as like with having slightly more tan or darker skin.
Because he grew up in the freaking jungle. Yeah, the fact that that happens.
I got it.
That's kind of what happens.
Except for that tan line around his loincloth.
Anyway, no, he didn't have a tan line because he didn't have it until he was like a teenager.
All right.
So I mean, maybe over time it was brighter, but yeah. Anyway, so when he's about like 19, 21 or something, he ends up seeing the first white people he's ever met, because he ends up seeing he meets Jane and her father, and then who's also traveling with his apparent cousin. I think it's William Cecil Clayton, who they don't know, who none of them know are related. They're on an expedition or something like that, and then through a lot of crazy misadventures, he ends up meeting both. He meets a lot of them. He meets almost all of them. But he ends up like well, and William Clayton at the time I think is dating or is engaged or something to not engaged. I think that like he's dating or something. He's
betrothed.
So like
he's
to Jane.
Courting.
But anyway,
courting.
At that point, so he ends up meeting.
Very prim and proper.
So he ends up meeting Jane for the first time. And he saves her from a couple of attacks. She gets kidnapped by like a giant ape or gorilla or whatever. He saves her. Then they
Does Jane have agency here?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, look, you gotta admit, early damsel stuff, but she kind of has some, but not really. She gets more later on, actually. She becomes a lot more spoken for herself, but yeah, early on, she's kind of more of a damsel. Yeah. She gets saved by. I also would say I would just call this like the adrenaline and that stuff, but she gets saved by Tarzan once by like a lion and stuff, and like there's now somehow in love for a little bit. Very quick.
I would say more lust than love.
Yeah, I think it was more like adrenaline pumping. He just like we went all full on like primitive.
Sweaty.
Yeah. Yeah, we get
super ripped man saves your life from a fucking lion. Yeah, I'd be into it too.
I get the point. Anyway, so he ends up bringing her back and stuff like that, and he ends up when he saves her and stuff, because he's like a mystery to them, and he doesn't speak and he doesn't speak, but he does write. So at one point, like he literally does.
Also knows how to write.
Huh?
He knows how to write.
He knows how to read and write. So at one point, like, he doesn't know how to speak to them and stuff like that. He's like, he literally writes like to Jane or something like that after he saves her, and just leaves a note for her. And he's like, I saved you.
Creepy.
I like you a lot. And it's like, I saved you and I like you a lot. I am Tarzan, Lord of the Apes, and just be careful of this jungle or whatever. But at one point, so they also come with this French.
That's weird.
But they also come with like this French captain named Tarzanathon.
You mean your favorite character?
I love him. So no, Tarzan. I love Tarzan, but I love Tarzanathon. He's like my favorite side character. He shows up.
My boy, Tarzanathon.
He's the one who brought them over, and he's there on the expedition. And he ended up yes, he ends up getting captured by the natives from before, from the village, from their group. So as far as because they don't also like people showing up on their land, understandably, but still, but that's why almost anyone who shows up there kind of ends up getting
but like, how is it portrayed?
It's more like he just gets captured by them. That's about it.
Yeah, that's fair.
And they're gonna kill him probably.
Yeah, that's totally fair.
In a very, very horrific ritualistic thing, but they do that apparently to their own people sometimes too. I don't know.
You see why there might be issues here.
Yeah, but that's not something, again, but people are acting like that never happened. It's like, yes, it did.
But this is the only example of people here that you want to show?
Anyway, no, it's not the only example, but it's like the main example. But anyway, at the time,
by the way,
so he ends up getting captured. And at the time, so when Tarzan heads out to save him, but during that time, they end up getting like a party, or a boat ends up finding them, and so Jane and the others, they go back, basically on
a concrete jungle,
kind of leaving like Tarzanathon behind. So Jane ends up, so Tarzan kind of gets depressed for a bit, but he saves Tarzanathon, and they become fast friends, and he ends up
and then they get together.
No, they're bros. They're like the best of bros. It's actually kind of awesome. That's one of the things that stays consistent. They're actually just bros throughout like a majority of the story. They become, so like Tarzan helps nurse Tarzanathon back to health, and in the meantime, Tarzanathon actually starts teaching him how to speak a little bit. But he also says he also ends up finding out that like Tarzan takes him to the cabin, his parents' cabin, and he ends up kind of putting together that this guy is William Clayton, John Clayton's son. Because
William Clayton, John Clayton.
It's like John. No, John Clayton, the father.
Yeah.
He ends up feeling, you're
John
like
Clayton
you're
II.
like you're John Clayton the third. It's like, oh crap, because he found the.
That sounds like a terrible name.
No, but he found like the notebook from his dad. But Tarzan at first doesn't believe it. He doesn't accept the fact that he is human. He still thinks he's considers himself an ape. And
but you still like Jane enough to leave a note for her?
He was very depressed when she left and stuff. But that doesn't mean like that. It didn't occur to him the fact that why do the apes give a crap about interspecial crap? They don't. To him, it's not weird.
You got a point.
Like that's not a weird thing to them. So he doesn't like. But he doesn't believe himself to be man. So he thinks he thinks, as far as he knows, that he was raised by apes. He doesn't even believe that he had human parents. So because like to him, Kala's his mother. That's it. Which is nice and all, but
I mean, like she is.
Yeah, no, but but
yeah.
I think like he still thinks
biologically she didn't birth.
Yeah, I feel like at one point she probably did tell him he was adopted, but I guess it just never came up.
I don't think it matters.
Yeah, not that matter, but like you think it would have came up in conversation at one point. It's like, Mom, why do I look nothing like you?
That doesn't matter, sweetie.
It's kind of like, it's like if like Kala had a kid, it's like, honey, I'm gonna be honest, that kid looks nothing like me. I don't even think he's this. Have you been seeing a human behind my back?
Oh my god.
It's like one of those scenarios. Anyway, he ends up. So Tarzanathon ends up deciding to convince Tarzan to go, if he wants to go see Jane, he's gonna bring him to the world of humans and humanity and society and all that. And in the meantime, teaches him
to France.
No. So he says we'll take you to. By the way, Jane. Jane is American. I should have mentioned that. She's an American who I think either grew up in London or like her father works in London, but she's from America.
Yay.
I can't believe I never. Anyway.
Does it matter?
No, because I guess if you think from the movies, you just think she's British, but no, she lives in London sometimes, but like she's from America originally. So Tarzanathon convinces Tarzan to let him take him, so he takes him to France first, and on the way there,
don't start with France.
So
don't start with Europe. If you want to interact with people, don't start with Europe.
So the first language Tarzan ever learns to speak is French.
Oh god, that's even worse.
And which I think is a bit trickier for him, but he gets that. And then, so the one thing is, it should also be mentioned, like Tarzan's like not dumb at all. He's actually really smart. He
recognizes Europe is terrible and goes back immediately.
He picks things up very quickly. And I think this is a comment to like the old stereotype that Tarzan was kind of a dumbass or something, which I never liked. But I'm like,
he was
no,
never really that much of a dumbass.
Yeah, no. In some the older serials and stuff, there was a stereotype of that, but like even then, he wasn't really portrayed as one. I think it just became like a common thing that he's just a savage or whatever. It's like he's just a savage, but he knows crap. He's not stupid. Anyway, so he learns French, and then he decides to go to America to go see Jane. Or else at the time.
Oh God, not America.
In the meantime, Tarzanathon is staying, I think, in France, and he wants to see if he can confirm the fact that he is.
He's gonna do an investigation.
That he's John Clayton III. Like find a way, like take like a DNA test or I don't know. He wants to confirm it.
Put on your 19th century Sherlock cap and get to working on this investigation.
But he ends up confirming, but I mean, like, we know before that William Clayton who was Tarzan's cousin, also ended up being the inheritor of the title of Greystoke.
And now we're back in Downton Abbey.
No. So what ends up, Tarzan goes to America and in the meantime learns English. He picks up English while he's there. I think it's like on a 9-month boat trip or whatever. He ends up learning at least basic English.
How is he on a boat?
What do you mean?
Like how does he feel?
He seems to be fine with he seems to have gotten like
if you've lived your entire life on land, I would assume you'd be seasick.
No, but he taught himself how to swim and he's experienced something. So the boat thing I think was a big deal.
Yeah,
but
you've never lived on like unstable ground before.
Well, a lot of it was brand new to him, and so a lot of it's taking. He lives in a tree, man, half the time. What stability is that? And he almost drowned as a kid. So at this point, he's like, whatever. He's gotten so used to all the crap he does.
Where does Jane live in America anyway?
I can't remember. I think it was like Virginia or something. Or I don't even remember. It's the East Coast. She lives on the East Coast. But so Tarzan, at the end of the story, at least the first one, Tarzan ends up coming to America and discovers what? Discovers that Jane is engaged to marry William Clayton, and so he also decides to hide the fact that he is that he is the because it's confirmed
the rightful heir.
Yeah, so he ends up finding out. He's
Manor.
They find out it's like the results. The results are in. You are like John Clayton III. It's like,
are you trying to do a Jerry Springer reference?
No, I wasn't.
The results are in. He was your father.
He was your father. I mean,
you said the results are in. I thought you were doing a bit.
No, because he literally just gets like a freaking letter. It's like from Dara. It's like a convenient telegram. Oh, I guess I am the rightful heir. I'm not gonna say anything about this, and he ends up just leaving. And actually, that's really like the original book ends. That's how the story ends. He ends up going back, lives with Tarzanathon, goes to Paris for a bit, hangs out there,
gets into shenaniganery.
More crap happens later on, but
kind of misadventures.
So like from there on, he goes to I mean, look, eventually, even in the stories and stuff, Jane and Tarzan do get together and they get married. They even have a son. who gets into his own adventures.
What was he named? John Clayton the Fourth?
No,
that would be terrible.
Well,
and lazy.
so he has two names because actually at one point, I might as well just get into this now. So yeah, Tarzan and Jane do have a son, and he eventually for a while actually does get separated from them and also raised by apes, for a little bit. No, but way later than Tarzan did. So he was raised. So it was sort of like a reverse Tarzan, where it's like a kid who comes from like the society, I think, then having to like accumulate to ape society.
Fucking what?
And even gets like an ape name too.
What is this, Boruto?
No, but that eventually happens too. I don't think the kid was gonna last long, but he became popular in his own right in part of the series.
All right, what's his ape name?
I forgot what it was, but it means like murder or something.
You know what? That checks out.
Because of how the guy who named him. The first time he meets the guy, he ends up like killing someone or I think another ape or whatever. So they call him like the murder.
That's how white devils do.
But he's not the white devil now.
They're all white devils.
Anyway, but so that's basically the first one, and this got adapted into a couple comics and stuff, which we.
How much later?
At least the ones that I've read, it got a bunch of comics. There were some in the 40s and the 50s. The main ones were maybe the 60s and 70s. That was like the ones, some of the popular ones. I really enjoyed those actually. I forgot who the guy who drew it, but he actually did a really good job.
Who got the rights?
So it bounced around. I forget the rights of the original people. Marvel had it for a while. DC had it for a while. I don't know who. I don't know.
Then DC lost it and made Commandy instead.
I don't know who currently owns the rights to Tarzan comics. I don't even know if they still. I don't think they still make any. I don't know if there's any current runs. But because as far as I know, I think he's like some of the rights are in the public domain. Who knows? But. I mean, someone has to still be republishing because they've realized
unless Disney pulls their bullshit and decides to,
No, but they don't own the rights to that. Like only Disney related stuff, but like they don't own anything to like because like people can like they've made other non-Disney related Tarzan stuff.
All right.
There was a Tarzan movie then like 5 years ago that had nothing to do with Disney.
Disney like fucked over the entire system where a lot of their characters were about to enter the public domain, and
that's their characters. That's characters they created. They're not allowed to so they can make movies for people, but like they can't just take the rights from them unless they buy the rights.
I mean, they're Disney. They might just do that.
They could do that.
They might just harass the family until they give them the rights.
But anyway, that was so essentially that was the main story of Tarzan, and I think like the basis. What do you think, Nati? I will say one thing though. The comic in itself is actually pretty good. I have to remember the name of it. But like,
is it Tarzan, Lord of the Apes?
Yeah, no, but there was like a specific one drawn by a specific person that basically covers like a bunch of the books and has its own separate issues that does. But I think it's a cool idea. I mean, at the time, because I'm like, if you're not like, because for a lot of people, it's like you like the visual idea of Tarzan. So if you're not into like, if you don't want to read the book, checking out one of the comic adaptations seems like the next best bet. Because there aren't a lot of movies that really adapted the Tarzan story.
The actual full Tarzan story?
Which we might get to.
When was the last time you saw They Are Not in any adaptation?
He shows up in actually in something we're gonna talk about soon in a few weeks actually.
Nice foreshadowing there, buddy.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about maybe we'll talk about it. But
what do you mean maybe?
I know we're gonna talk about it.
Yeah,
we're gonna talk. Fine. What did you think? What did you think of
aside from the obvious problematic elements,
which you could clearly move on from, but forget it. But yeah, because 110 years ago, oh my God. I mean, I'm not saying like it's okay, and I'm not saying it's fine, but at the same time, like I don't think like that wasn't the main focus of it.
Hey, and I said at the beginning, I hear something I think,
and they're
wrong.
Not caricatures.
Okay, fine, but I hear something I think is wrong. I'm gonna call it out. Aside from that, it's fine.
All right.
Perfectly okay. I think the Downton Abbey stuff is boring as fuck. I don't really care who's the rightful heir to Greystoke Manor or whatever. Yeah. I just want to see him hang out in the jungle and kill animals.
I do personally care more about that. I like that stuff more. Fine, but next time...
I also want to see him kill more white people because that's just me. But apparently They Are Not is the coolest, so he's safe.
He is the coolest. And he is white. Anyway, next time we're going to talk about basically one of probably... the lesser known, not lesser known, but like not one of the more popular adaptations.
Next time on the Tarzanathon.
Basically, we're gonna make,
is that the subtitle for this whole thing, the Tarzanathon?
Yeah, the Tarzanathon. We're gonna call that. To make ourselves suffer and for your entertainment, we are gonna go watch one of the bad Tarzan movies that was made, the most recent animated Tarzan movie.
Not the Disney one.
That's why I said the most recent animated Tarzan movie.
Well, that's the only...
It's just called It's also just called Tarzan. Came out 2013.
Oh no.
It's not gonna be fun.
We do this for you.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun.
You're welcome.
We suffer for your entertainment.
Are you happy? You serpents.
So come back for that.
Yeah, you better come
You
back.
better come back for that. Hi, thanks for watching to the end of the video. Like, subscribe, or hit that notification bell. It really helps the show out. If you want to go see more of us, we have a podcast with way more episodes, so go check that out.
We also have a Twitter where we mostly just post new uploads when they come out and updates on the show. So if you want to keep up on the progress that we make, go follow us there.